Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter ruled, not ruled, what I'm saying, and you know what? Hell, I didn't even bring it in this picture, but essentially, Ashton Carter, Secretary of Defense, has started today. He publicly admitted that Russia has become extremely aggressive, not just with their annexation of the Crimea, not just with their overly militaristic approach to the Ukraine, not just with their general jargon, but also with their rhetoric around nuclear proliferation. I can't even say the words tonight, but they are now communicating that NATO is having to increase their defensive forces, their defensive posture, the number of troops that they have on rotation on the on the western side of the Russian border. Ashton Carter is saying that we are essentially quickly going back to 1991, to the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. He's saying because of the language of Putin, because of their militaristic exploits, because of their positioning and their posturing in the region, they have had the NATO and the United States have had to escalate their defensive posture in Europe so that they can be prepared to fight off any attack that may be ensuing from Russia. I read this in the news today, and I was taken aback by how much this is not being talked about. Like, this is something, this is huge. This is a major issue because I don't know if you remember, I think it was January. Yeah, it was either January, it had to be January because it was still sort of warm here in Boston. But the plane that was shot, the Russian fighter jet that was shot down by Turkey. And for a brief moment there, we really did not know what was going to happen next. Because according to the treaty that formed NATO, if Turkey, who is a member of NATO, gets into a war with a hot war with Russia, we are duty bound to defend Turkey and any other nation member of NATO. And so for a brief moment there in January this year, we really were unsure. And when I say brief, I literally mean for maybe an hour or two. We really were not sure what the outcome of this confrontation would be, because had Putin escalated and shot down a fighter jet from Turkey, had Putin escalated whatsoever, the United States was duty bound by this treaty to defend Turkey. And now, simply because of the rhetoric of Putin, we are seeing an escalation of defensive postures and defensive troops. The number of troops that are present, you've seen an increase of troops that are doing a rotation through the countries that align with it, that fall on the border of Russia. And this is, according to Secretary of Defense Carter, this is an escalation that we have not seen since the end of the Cold War in 1991. And I say, is it Ashton? I know yeah, it is Ashton. His full name is Ashton. He goes by Ash. Okay. Meanwhile, Donald Trump will start getting national security briefings somewhere towards the end of the convention, the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. I'm not comfortable with Donald Trump getting security briefings and being free to tweet them out. I don't want to. I don't think Donald Trump is that ridiculous, but at the same time, I don't want to underestimate how ridiculous he can be. And I don't want to cast this as like a glooming, ominous time, but I don't think that there's ever a period where it's not a serious time, particularly in international relations, but more specifically talking about Russia and the aggressive posturing that Vladimir Putin has positioned himself. Right, he's stretching his legs and he's doing what he feels is in the best interest of not of Russia so much, but of his political party in Russia. Because if you want to strengthen yourself on domestic politics and you're a hawk, then what you do international actually is going to be the thing that helps you locally. And you see, he has his popularity in Russia is actually more than what you would expect, particularly with the nationalistic sentiment that is brewing in Russia. So he knows what he's doing, and whether or not it's actually in the best interest of Russia is to be determined, but it is in the best interest of his political aspirations and the things that he wants to accomplish. So as I say this is not a condemnation so much of his calculus, right? I don't want people to think that Putin is making these types of decisions as an irrational actor. I think he's doing these things as a very rational actor who knows exactly what he needs to maintain the political stranglehold that he has over Russia. Now, is that in the benefit of Russia in the long run? Who knows? Time will tell on that. But in terms of political expediency, yeah, this type of bold posturing is something that the Russian people overwhelmingly like. If you look at some of the polling that comes out of Russia, and so it presents a problem for the United States, particularly vis-a-vis NATO. It presents a major problem for the United States because we have a duty. We are committed to go to war to defend anyone who is a member nation of NATO that gets into a hot war.